Welcome friends to video 8 of week 5. In this week, we'll talk about how conversation chains matter. Today, we will step into a dimension of forensic linguistics that is subtle, fascinating, and incredibly powerful. That is conversation chains. In digital crimes, conversations rarely stay on one platform. Offenders shift between WhatsApp, Instagram, Telegram, Facebook, email, and even anonymous forums. Each shift is deliberate. Each shift hides something, and each shift leaves a trace. As a forensic linguist, our job is to reconstruct this chain piece by piece until the entire narrative becomes visible. Now, you must have a question in your mind that what are the conversation chains? Let's establish the core idea. Friends, a conversation chain is a sequence of messages exchanged across multiple digital platforms, forming one continuous communicative event. Offenders often assume that splitting a conversation across platforms makes it harder to track. But linguistically, it does the opposite. Humans cannot radically change their linguistic habits. Every time they switch apps, they carry their linguistic signatures with them. So even if a conversation shifts apps, the writer remains the same, and the same writing reveals the continuity. So in that case, if you understand this, we are not concerned with the body, we are concerned with the soul. If the writer can change the body but the soul remains same, and that is something where we hit. Now, a question should come to your mind that why do offenders switch platforms during deception? What's the logic behind it? Friends, platform switching is almost always intentional. Sometimes offenders want more privacy. Sometimes they want to isolate certain conversations. Maybe sometimes they want to avoid screenshots. And sometimes they want to confuse investigators. But despite these intentions, linguistic style remains relatively stable. When the same person writes across apps, their tone, rhythm, emoji habits, spelling quirks, and pacing follow them. Friends, platform switching changes the location of the message, not the psychology behind it. The linguistic signature that survives platform shifts. Just think of a linguistic signature as a musical tune. It stays recognizable even if you play it on a different instruments. Whether someone types on WhatsApp or writes on email, their linguistic behaviors follow them. Their favorite adverbs, their preferred emojis, their sentence length, their punctuation habits, their metaphors, their speech rhythm, these elements act like strands of DNA. They remain stable. They survive context changes, and they allow forensic linguists to stitch a narrative together. Let's consider a hypothetical case and try to understand this. Imagine a fraud investigation. A victim receives an investment offer on WhatsApp. After a few days, the fraudster insists the conversation move to Telegram because it is more secure. The language stays the same. Same spelling errors, same persuasive tone, same overuse of trust me, same urgent calls to act quickly. These things remain same. Once the victim reports the crime, investigators map the linguistic patterns across platforms, and the fraudster's identity becomes traceable. The chain becomes the evidence. Whether you are there on WhatsApp or Telegram or any other, but the pattern carries, the same thing, right? This is something like soul that lives with you, that does not leave you, and that is something that we look for. Now, if you look at the conversation drift, see how meaning changes across apps. That means when conversation move across platforms, the meaning of the conversation drifts. A message that appears casual on Instagram may become more formal on email. A compliment on WhatsApp may become suggestive on Telegram. Offenders exploit this drift. They push boundaries gradually by testing tone shifts during the platform changes. But the drift also reveals their intention, what they choose to escalate on a certain platform and what they choose to hide. See, we can detect the manipulation through platform positioning. Now, what do you mean by platform positioning? Platform positioning refers to where the conversation chain a shift occurs. Offenders usually switch platforms at very specific moments. Right before asking sensitive questions, number one. Right before requesting money, number two. Right before sending inappropriate content, number three. And number four, right before making threats. The moment of switching is linguistically significant. It marks the offender's psychological transition from safe conversation to risky engagement. When we map these moments, we can reconstruct their strategy. What we need to understand is the emotional tone that reveals continuity across platforms. Even if the grammar changes across platforms, emotional tone remains constant. An anxious offender writes anxiously everywhere. A confident manipulator maintains charm everywhere. A groomer carries their intentional, emotional rhythm across apps. Soothing messages here, sudden intensity there, long silences followed by emotional bursts. These are the types. Emotional continuity becomes one of the strongest indicators during authorship analysis. Even we can track and trace the non-verbal communication, that is emojis. Friends, emojis are identity markers. People use them habitually. See, some people prefer hearts, some people prefer sparkles, some people prefer sarcastic faces, and some prefer none. Offenders rarely change their emoji habits simply because they switch platforms. Even frequency remains constant. This continuity is unbelievably valuable. In several cyber stalking cases, investigators have identified offenders purely because of their unique emoji footprints. Now, when science, technology and linguistics combines, it brings miracles. When metadata meets linguistics, it strengthens the chain. How come? While our focus is on linguistics, metadata strengthen the chain. Timestamps, device footprints, typing intervals, geolocation hints. Combined with linguistic evidence, metadata creates a near unbreakable chain. When metadata clusters align with linguistic patterns, the offender's digital trail becomes undeniable in the court. See, conversation reconstruction. How the investigators rebuild the narrative is very important to understand. For investigators, reconstruction is like solving a puzzle. Investigators place messages chronologically, one by one. They observe the shifts in the tone. They try to track the emotional markers. They watch for strategic pauses and compare writing styles. When you arrange the pieces, deception becomes visible. The offender's intention, timing, and strategy appear clearly. Even deleted messages can be inferred through pattern gaps. Once the entire chain is visible, definitely the truth emerges. Friends, courts rely on conversation chains because they provide behavioral context. A single message can be misinterpreted, but the chain cannot. It shows escalation, it shows manipulation, it shows planning, it shows persistence. And courts examine whether the linguistic progression suggests coercion, fraud, grooming, or intent. Friends, this chain becomes a storyline, and a forensic linguistics becomes the narrator of truth. I hope that you must have enjoyed this, a small journey of conversation chain. Thank you very much for engaging with me on this crucial topic. Friends, the digital world may appear fragmented, but communication is always continuous, and continuity is where identity hides. As forensic linguists, we reconstruct that continuity. In the next video, we shift from platform analysis to deepfake-driven linguistic deception, exploring how AI-generated voices and text create new challenges for evidence authentication. This is going to be more exciting for you people because it is going to open the new avenues of deepfake-driven linguistic deception. So stay tuned with me. I'll catch you there in the next video. Till then, thank you very much. Namaskar.